Evening, everybody. Icy here. I've been doing some number crunching, kind of curious about, excuse me, about what it is costing us, the taxpayers, in regards to all these riots, protests, however you want to put it, that technically have been sponsored by and supported by the Democratic Party. I'll just give you a few examples. In 2020, Seattle, Washington, hundreds of buildings were damaged and destroyed, and the estimated cost for the repairs was $2 billion. Now, I don't know how legit that is, but you think an insurance company is going to pay off on that? No, it's going to be the taxpayers footing the bill. Portland, Oregon, the damage to just the federal buildings alone was $2.3 million, with the total estimated cost for damage in the city at $4.8 million. The damage in Minneapolis, Minnesota was approximately 1,000 buildings destroyed for a total of $500 million. Damage to Washington, D.C. during the riots there just a couple of years ago was $30 million. Baltimore, Maryland, the estimate for the damage to the riot, so-called protest there, is $9 million and as much as $13 million for that. Also, in 2020, there were 68 major cities that had protests going on, for a total number of protests, combined all the different cities, 8,700 protests. Now that's an awful lot. And between May 25th and July 31st, most of the protest riots were in Los Angeles County and New York City. Now, the vast majority of these cities that are involved in all these riots, protests, however you want to put it, are all run by Democrats. And if there is, by chance, a Republican mayor, the majority of the city council is still Democrat, so basically their hands are tied. So my question to everyone is this: why are you allowing it to happen? You control the purse strings, basically, in every city, every state in this country. If the taxpayers, now you have to pay federal tax, that's the law. However, the IRS does not enforce paying state tax, does not enforce paying town tax, does not enforce paying any of those other taxes, because the IRS deals strictly with federal tax, from what I understand. If the citizens decide to withhold their funds until the city gets their head out of their butts and fixes things, that might make a difference, because we all know everything comes down to the almighty dollar. And right now, the dollar's not worth squat. And we are having a heck of a time with our own politicians being fit for office. Joe Biden, how many times has he fallen on camera? How many times has he appeared to be falling asleep? Or, for example, during that one Easter at the White House, he was followed around by a female staffer that was in the bunny suit, and she was preventing him from going up to speak with the American citizens. And basically that's controlling, especially since he made a statement, I have to do what I'm told. So, and he's the president. So you got that going on. You've got Kamala Harris, who's the vice president of the United States, who is questionable in her understanding of many of the issues that are plaguing the United States at this time. She's supposedly in charge of the border. She's the border czar. and yet she has never actually been to the border. Oh, going to a city that's a border city is not the same as going to the border. So let's get that right. Not only that, but in regards to those riots that I had mentioned, the protest earlier, when she was still a senator, she actually had set up a fund to go and bail these protesters, these violent people, out of jail. So that right there tells everyone that she supports the destruction. Also, the mainstream media at the time gave the excuse that it's not a violent protest because no people were injured, only buildings. And buildings, you can't be violent against a building, is what I heard one reporter say. So that right there, drives you nuts. So we got Biden, who is totally out there, Harris, clueless, Mayorkas, very condescending individual who makes claims about the border, but in reality he's doing nothing except stoking the flames of human trafficking and drug, dealing. So I want to know how much of a kickback does he get? You've got Dianne Feinstein. She is so old she doesn't even know what's going on. Mitch McConnell. Look at him on camera again, zoned out because he had a stroke. I'm sorry. These people that are having these issues bring about one word, a phrase, I should say, that really should come into play this next election, and that is term limits. I'm sorry. If you're in office more than 8 years, you've been in too long. Being in politics is not supposed to be a career that you can make your living off of the American people's taxes or your backroom deals with the lobbyist. I'm sorry. The time has come to end this once and for all. When the original founding fathers set up our government, the people that got elected, for example, for president, his opponent was the vice president. The senators and the congressmen, they did their job for a short period of time and went back home. They didn't try to live off of the taxpayers. And back then there really was no taxpayers. Everybody, you didn't have taxes per se, just the federal government. You had one. You didn't pay town tax, city tax, school tax. You didn't pay fees for hunting, fees for fishing, fees for having a dog. You didn't have to pay fees for 99% of the stuff. We got over 50 different taxes that the people are getting in this country. So they didn't have that. And it really needs to change. We need term limits, and we also need to ensure that our elections are fair and honest, and that means a voter ID card, a foolproof voter ID card. We're the only country on the planet that doesn't have that, so it just adds, fuel to the fire that this is something we have to have. So the two main things that really need to come into play is a voter ID, because right now with, like, for example, Mayorkas, in 2 years you let over 5 million illegals. I know for a fact that the illegals vote in New York State. They're not allowed to vote. They're illegals. I also know for a fact that the federal government is targeting Elon Musk for not hiring illegals because they're illegals, but they call them immigrants. So it's time to overhaul this entire U.S. government. We have to get rid of the unsavory elements. We have to get rid of the pro-communist, pro-socialist members of both houses. And we have to do it in such a way that this country still stays safe. I see out.